Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 82 of A Letter to the King. If you're new to the series, A Letter to the King is my attempt to keep us up to date with what's going on the global server, the server that never sleeps. Let's have a little look-see at where we were last week. The Brits had taken Naval. They'd failed to take Cartagena. They were really eating up ports around this neck of the woods. The Spanish were making a wee bit of a comeback. The Americans and the pirates were going at hammer and tongs in the Bahamas, and that was really where most of the biffo was. This week was very much more of the same, with both the Americans and the pirates and the Brits going at it left, right and centre. And really nothing's changed politically. There's this triumvirate, this threesome is where it's at as far as PvP is concerned. So let's see if we can pick up on the highlights. I don't know what they're doing there, the Scoobies, the Danes. They weren't doing much. They grabbed a couple of ports here and there. So the Americans managed to snaffle up a couple of ports, free ports, on the north side of the Bahamas. They did have a go at defending Bimini from the pirates. This was quite a good battle, but the pirates ended up pushing the Americans out, and in the end it was one of these ones that snowballed, and the Americans fell out of Bimini. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened. I don't know if one of the pirate clans went bankrupt or disappeared, but the pirates lost several ports in this area that they held in the previous week, and that's put a dint into their count this week. So if anyone knows what happens, it looks to me like one of the pirate clans, for whatever reason, didn't keep up its maintenance on 4 ports, I think, something of that order. The pirates did still capitalise in this area. They did grab up another couple of ports, but like I say, they lost 2 or 3 around this neck of the woods. The first pirate incursion of the week came at Jeremy, where I think it's AIB, which I believe might be a Brazilian time-zoned pirate clan. I think AIB used to be British. They speak predominantly Portuguese, and as such, they might not have known that attacking the Aussie clan at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon was, despite it being the global server, seen as a little bit cheeky monkeys. But the Brits rallied to the flag. The pirates sort of did the right thing by keeping an even port battle, so the guys in the larger clans, the Black and Blood, they made sure that the numbers were about even in the battle. And a couple of the Aussies who had the day off that day, they jumped in, but they were ably supported by CKA and GA really saved the day for the Brits. And this ended up being a good win for the Brits, and they managed to get a good victory out of it, sinking, I think, somewhere in the order of 11 pirate ships for the loss of 3. And AIB were vanquished. The Brits then took revenge by stealing AIB's port next door at Nips. Has to be said that the pirates vacated that port, perhaps as a mea culpa for running up Jeremy at a time. At the moment, there's no golden handshake deal on global, but there is a bit of a thing where people try and find a fight where it's going to get defended. So both the pirates and the Brits, and to some extent the pirates and the Americans, try to run up ports when they know there's going to be capability to defend. I know the Brits sort of inadvertently ran up Santiago. I think it was a whole bunch of mortar brig boys having a bit of a laugh, and that was all at a bad time, so no one rocked up there. And you know, it is global, so if someone decides to knock on your door and pick a port off at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, so be it. The gloves come off, and we move into flipping mode. The next battle was a bit of a double bash, actually. The pirates ran up Mugeras, and I think it's Cayman Brac. I always a little Cayman Brac. at the same time. Now, interestingly enough, two British clans, one was told that this was sort of an accident and they didn't mean to run it up, and the other was told this was an accident and they didn't mean to run that up either. So the Brits did the classic Scooby-Doo folly and split their numbers, and they put about 18 captains in here and about 18 captains in here, which wasn't the brightest idea, I have to say, in the history of the world. Along came the pirates. Now, the Brits, were they outnumbered? Yeah, I think they were outnumbered by about 2 ships. And the Brits did very well, actually. They sank 6 pirates to, I think the Brits lost 5, and then a whole bunch of pirates got sank outside in as they tried to run back to Portillo. And although the Brits lost the port, morale was buoyed. 1 pirate turned up here. So there was 18 captains sitting there, so that would have made a splendid screening fleet and a full defence. Really, although the Brits won the punching fight inside, the pirates were very savvy and they won the circle fight. So even though the pirates were sinking, they were scoring points on the circles. And if you get all 3 circles, the battle's over in 21 minutes from the point you hold all 3 circles. So the pirates not only good at the old fighting, but they were smart there with how they did the circles. And this was a good result for the Brits, although they lost the port. It was the first time they'd sort of, first time in several weeks that they'd really managed to put it on the pirates, since Naval, really. Disappointing that they were half a dozen ships short, really, of a full fleet, because that would have been most interesting. Now, after such a glorious defeat, an Empiric defeat, and the Brits were sent packing, no pirates rocked up at Mageras. Well, one did in a navy brig. The Brits were now to face the pirates at Le Navas about an hour and a half, 2 hours after this battle had concluded. And the Brits managed to get good numbers, but it was a really, I'd say a third of the Brits in there had not fought a port battle before. We were actually having to add lads to our clan so they could join. Good on your captains for turning up. And we had a special guest star from the olden days lead the British fleet. He was giving it a go for the weekend, as it were. Down came the pirate fleet. Now, they were actually outnumbered by 3 ships, although 2 of them were surprises. And they did the right thing as well, the pirates. They sent their main in fleet with the wind from the east. They dropped their mortar brig in, as you should, sort of on the southwest. The Brits lost track of the pirates a little bit and put their surprises in the wrong place, so we ended up having to send a Wazzer after the mortar brig. Well, that never got there in time. The mortar brig had done its duty by the time the Wazzer was anywhere near the mortar brig. And despite being slightly outnumbered, the pirates really fought smartly and outplayed the Brits. And it's the same old story. I think on the first pass, 3 pirate ships had lost their entire side and the majority of their structure, and the Brits just failed to bayonet the wounded, failed to finish them off. Which actually reminds me, we had a bazooka's bug when we were down at Cartagena the last time. 2 ships collided and they lost like all one side of the hull. Well, there's a video up on the forums of this battle, and this was just crazy bonkers, this one. What you saw here was 2 pirate ships. I think they were sort of trying to sandwich a British ship. And they were like, you know, you get the thing where you get the strange physics of the front of the ships rubbing against each other. And then almost like an elastic band, 2 of the ships sort of jumped up in the air and landed back on the water. And when they did, they were down to like a bubble of superstructure and no armour. Now, I mean, that was really bad news for the 2 pirates involved. It did stuff up a couple of Brits around them as well, but nowhere near as bad as it did with the pirates. And unfortunately, there wasn't a Brit who could get near to the pirate to the wounded pirates to finish them off, and that could have actually turned Les Kay's. Came and but as it was, I can't remember. I've had a long day. I think it is Les Kay's. Anyway, back to Navas. The Brits really fumbled at the start. They could have put 3 pirates to the bottom, and that would have turned it all. But in the end, the misplay on the outer circles meant that the pirates were racking up the points, and the Brits were really having to throw themselves in to get kills. And I think they lost a 2-to-1 ratio of ships by the end of it. However, during the day, one of the lads did the tally. The amount of pirates sunk in open world more than made up for the amount of Brits lost in the port battles. So although the pirates did splendidly and won both ports, the Brits did quite good with the post-battle nibbles, as it were. So Navas goes back to pirate hands. Well done, pirates, again. And I think the Brits need a couple of leaders to step forward and really call in the focus fire and really start working on finishing off the pirates. The pirates are just repeatedly good at finishing off wounded ships and protecting their own. Meanwhile, the Swedes carried on to consolidate around here, and although the French and Spanish and the Dutch didn't really do much as far as gaining new ports were concerned, I have been in contact with folks from each of the nations, and there is a little bit of a resurgence, and numbers were good this week in naval action, so that's good to see. I know the Americans are struggling. You'll see my open world hotspots. The Americans are always taking a slapping up and down this coast, and I think they're getting a bit weary of every time they go for a sail in the game. You know, they get jumped on by a pack of hyenas, be it Brits just looking for a fight, or be it pirates looking for a fight. Every time the Americans go out, they seem to get jumped, and I think there's a few of them getting a little weary of it. I think the Spanish grabbed one more port over here this week. The Brits set up lots of ports around this neck of the woods, really filling in the centre of the map here, creating this large holding. So where are the hotspots if you're looking for PvP? Well, they're sort of around this area as always. Up and down the coast of Florida, there's always fighting going on. Probably this is the sort of PvP area. In fact, someone referred to it as the PvP area the other day, as if it was an in-game mechanic. Although a number of pirates have moved in to Great Corn, cheeky monkeys. They're a bit bored at Cartagena. They've sailed across to Great Corn and they've been snagging folks up. In fact, just before the battle at Les Kay's, or Little Cayman, whatever the bloody hell it is, Little Cayman, the Brits were moving a couple of victories from one port to the other, and 4 or 5 pirates jumped them in fourths, and they actually managed to capture the victories, knock the sails down, rip the backsides off, kill their crew and capture the victories. Only 30 minutes later to then be met by a counter-force of Brits who promptly sunk all the fourth rates and recaptured the victories. So that's an excellent bit of action both ways round down there. So that was good to see. So this is a bit of a new hotspot on the map, which is good to see. Where will next week's slap and tickle be? Well, there's a lot of pirates around Great Corn. You can't imagine they're there just for the view. We've seen the pirates have a little tickle around sort of north of Bensalem and Banaka and up around here, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some activity there. This seems to be a hot spot in this area here, sort of between St. Nick and Navas and Santiago. Obviously the Bahamas, this is where the shallow water fleets go out and bash each other to and fro, so there'll be more happening here. So I suspect that's where it will be next week. Naval Action Legends went into its 3rd week of alpha testing this week. There was a couple of bigger player on player. In fact, one of the guys I sailed with was in a 6-on-6, which was great fun. There's a few boys now getting into the upper frigates, so Indefatigables have been seen sailing around, Essexes have been seen sailing around. I've just made it into the L'Ennemi, and I have to say this week there wasn't a lot of gaming improvements. In theory you could be in bigger groups than 3, although I never managed to get that to work. We seem to have a bit of a problem there. But hey, it's still good fun. And we'll see. They're talking about maybe leaving it up this week. I'm not quite sure if they're going to stick to their guns on that. But lots of promise on Legends. On the tally of splinters, sail and blood. So the Brits snapping up all those ports around Venezuela and Mexico are up now to 75 ports. The Pirates, although they won 3 ports in contested PvP, which is really where it's all at, they did lose 1 port in contested PvP, and like I say, I think they may have lost a clan as well, because 4 or 5 ports have fallen off the radar for the Pirates. The Americans, despite losing, I think it was Bimini in the Bahamas, they managed to grab a couple of ports on the other side of Florida. The Danes grabbed up an extra, the Spanish grabbed up 1, and as I said, the Swedes have been consolidating. So who are the main clans doing the do? And I think the Brits took out the victory mark this week, despite losing 2 ports in open world PvP, in RVR PvP. They did gain 1 as well. The main clans, the handsome, suave and super intelligent Aussie clan Armed are top of the pops, pulling away a little bit from black. GA have really decided to pull their socks up, and they're surging up the board at the moment. They're on 16. I have heard the Chinese are struggling. The Great Firewall of China makes it quite difficult for them to play at the moment. Now they've gained a little bit, and Mars have held their own. So that's it for this week's naval action. A little bit quicker than normal, but Jahil's had a long day today, boys. So I'm hoping we'll get lots more fun over the week, and looking forward really to the weekend again. That's when it's all happening. Most of the clans organise the big PvP fights around that TikTok. So hopefully I'll see you on the ocean, and I'll catch you.